Good morning, guys. Today's video we're going to talk about how to bait deer for the late season. And let's be honest, late season deer hunting can be very rewarding, but it can also be very tough. Why can it be tough? It's tough because the deer have been hunted all season long and they have been pressured. It becomes very difficult in that manner. Also, what happens if you have a lack of food, especially if you're in big timber areas where you have a closed canopy forest where there is little to no food at ground level for deer, such as woody browse. Because this time of year, most of the country, there's nothing left except woody browse in areas that have that open canopy to allow that woody browse to grow. In areas that have that closed canopy forest, you have limited to no woody browse because the deer are eating that at a high rate because there's nothing else to eat. Now, if you get into ag areas, there can be areas where you have to cut the corn, they got some leftover corn out in the ag fields, maybe some bean pods or something like that. But in a majority of cases, it's lack of food. So deer resort to a limited resource such as leaves, leftover acorns, a little bit of woody browse. I've actually, deer actually eat bark off of trees in scarce situations. They'll eat pine needles, conifers and things like that. And I've seen that on a couple different properties in Pennsylvania where deer were actually eating conifers, and it wasn't good because if deer are eating conifers, they're starving. And in that area, they were, because the deer, all the ribs were showing. So that's just an instance on how it can be tough this time of year. Now, if you have a property such as private property where you have certain or sections that are unpressured, that you purposely left alone for late season, that can be very rewarding. But typically this time of year, unless you have a property that's been clear cut where you have a lot of woody browse left over, or you have food plots, it's tough hunting. Now, in this video I want to talk about how you can actually bait those deer and the best strategy to do that. And that's basically taking baiting states. You can have, like, you can use corn or some type of pellets or things like that. But let's be honest, nothing's better than corn. Me personally, I don't like to do that a whole bunch, but it can be done. And I will do it in certain situations. It just really depends on the state and what area that I'm in. Late season hunting can be tough. So, a lot of people resort to baiting, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to bait, I 100% fine with that, as long as it's a legal situation in the state that you're doing it in. So check your state before baiting. Make sure it's allowed. But you have to think about, if you're in an area that can bait, people are baiting. They're putting out corn, and the deer, they've been eating those corn piles all season long. They have been pressured on those corn piles all season long. And I say this all the time, and some people agree with it, some people don't. But when a deer approaches that corn pile, okay, you have to realize that they have seen everything. They have seen that person in that tree stand sitting there with a bow or a gun. That's why when they get to these corn piles, they're very sketchy. They do the single step. They walk into this corn pile, and all of a sudden you're just sitting there calmly, and all of a sudden they pop their head up and they look right at you. It's because they have been pressured over these corn piles from property to property to property. And they hear, while you're up there, they hear little squeaks of the stand. They hear your you draw your bow back. They hear you turning. They hear your clothes rustling against the bark of the tree. They become accustomed to this, and they hear this. They know dangers. They know the sounds that are typical in the woods, and they know the sounds that aren't supposed to be there. So they become very leery when they approach these corn piles, and most times it becomes a nocturnal corn pile. So when you're baiting, you have to do something a little bit different than your neighbors, okay, and then the areas around. So typically what I like to do is take that corn pile, and instead of dumping it in a pile, spread that out. spread it out in a 50-yard area, 40-yard area around your stand. That way, the deer, number one, it goes, when you spread it out like that, it goes under the leaves, right? So the deer, when they go through, they actually have to browse for it. They have to, move the leaves to the side to actually get to it like they're eating acorns, and it just becomes more natural. And when you spread it out like that, it actually lasts longer because the deer have to root for it. And the other reason is to do it that way is it's just more natural. It's not an eyesore, and because 90% of the people are just dumping it in a pile, and you're taking all those deer and you're forcing them to that pile, and they don't like that. They like to have a little bit of space. So it creates a little bit more of a comfort area when these deer, especially if you get more than one in there. When you spread it out like that, it's no different than, say, deer feeding in a pasture or a food plot where they can space themselves out a little bit to give themselves a little bit more, comfort. And doing that will actually attract more bucks in that area because it's spaced out. So the deer have more space to, just to feel a little bit more safe. And you can do this two different ways, not four, but two. You can hunt right over this corn pile, or you can back up 50 yards off that a little bit if you have this, say, a specific trail or travel corridor where deer are coming out of a bedding area going to this corn pile. You can hunt that intersection there in between that bedding and food. But when you put this out there, with this bait, have an idea, have a plan, set a camera up on it, wait a little bit, don't hunt it right away, let the deer settle into this, and typically you will get some daylight pictures in there. If you have a cell cam such as a Reveal, post that over there, and when you start seeing a good buck, you can hunt that. Now if you have food plots, that's ultimate. You can hunt those late season food plots in there if you planted the right things, in certain areas. If not, I have tons of videos on the channel that will let you know what to plant and what not to plant depending on which area you're in the country. But if you have that late season food source, whether it's you're baiting, you're planting food plots or things like that, you can have good success with late season. It's cold out there. Make sure you have warm clothes. Take some hand warmers. Keep your feet warm. And if you sit there long enough, eventually a deer is going to hit that late season food source, and you can have great success with it. Any questions? Post a comment down below. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel, and I'll be posting a lot more content. I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you want more information on food plots, soil samples, and habitat management, click this video right here on the screen. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you guys are new.